Hello everybody, welcome to the second show of the Northern Film Review. We are here today reviewing The Shining for our second show. Last week we did Parasite, and today we are doing The Shining, a fantastic little film by, the one and only Stanley Kubrick. It was released in 1980, and it's this horror phenomenon. There's loads and loads of crazy theories about it, and we're going to be discussing quite a few of them today. Really getting into depth on cinematography, a bit about the music, the sound, the theories, the acting, all sorts, because it's such a fantastic film, and we hope you enjoy it. The Northern Film Review, with your hosts, Oliver Ellis and Luke Simpson. Okay, so The Shining, Luke.
Yes.
I've got to introduce you. Here is Luke.
Hello.
Hello, Luke. How are you doing?
I'm great.
How do you think it went last week doing our first podcast?
Well, obviously, first podcast can get a bit ropey, but I think we did all right.
Yeah. How are you feeling with coronavirus and all that? I feel like we talk about movies a lot, but I never ask how you are.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think I'm all right with the virus. If we end up going another lockdown, I'm ready to bunker down. Just get a load of films. I've got internet, so I am fine. I've got my Netflix. I've got loads of streaming platforms. I can watch films for days. So
just keep rewatching The Shining and try and think if you can find all of the hidden meanings.
And there are tons of hidden meanings in The Shining. Tons and tons and tons.
Absolute megatons of hidden meanings in The Shining. I think, for a film that was released, like 40 years ago, is quite weird to think that it was released 40 years ago, but it's still pretty sort of, ever present within the cinematic communities and talked about quite a bit in terms of the style of it, the horror aspects of it, the general idea of the film. And I think it's such a fantastic film that I'm quite glad we get to talk about today. But just if people haven't seen it, do you want to kind of read them a little bit of a synopsis so they kind of understand what's going on?
Yes, I can. So Jack, played by Jack Nicholson, becomes the winter caretaker of this isolated overlook hotel in Colorado. He's an aspiring writer, but currently on writer's block, so he thinks going to this overlook isolated hotel is going to be good for him. He settles in with his wife Wendy and his son Danny. Danny has a special gift. He's played with premonitions and loads of weird stuff called The Shining. Hence Shining. Jack's writing's going nowhere. Danny's visions are becoming more disturbing. Jack discovers the dark secrets within the hotel, and it begins to unravel into a homicidal maniac, hell-bent on terrorizing his family.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a pretty great film. But I think because last week we did Parasite, and that was quite an overwhelmingly positively critically reviewed film by the majority of critics out there. It was hard to find a bad review of the film. But I think The Shining people are a bit more torn on whether they like it or whether they think it's a bit sort of up itself or whatever.
Most shockingly, one of its main critics is actually Stephen King. He didn't really like it at first.
No, I still think he hates it. I've got in my notes slightly further down of what he said.
What I think is that is the casting of Jack Nicholson, wasn't it?
Well, what he said was, I'd admired Kubrick for a long time and had great expectations for the project, but I was deeply disappointed in the end result. Stephen King called Playboy in 1983. He also said parts of the film are chilling, charged with relentless claustrophobic terror, but others fell flat.
Ooh.
I think it's kind of a theme with sort of authors of the book who perhaps don't like the films, which I find interesting. Like
I know, like,
Watchmen,
yeah, Watchmen, and the same with V for Vendetta as well.
yeah, or
I can't. What's his name? Alan? No, is it Alan?
Yeah,
Alan
Alan
Moore.
something, Alan
Alan Moore.
Moore or something like that. Yeah,
Comic book writer. Doesn't really like film adaptations of his films. Really
no,
didn't like V for Vendetta. Really didn't like Watchmen. I think he took his writer's credit off V for Vendetta because
he did. Yeah,
he didn't really like how it went. He had completely different ideas, and the screenwriters like, no, we're doing this, and it turned out really well. I really liked the V for Vendetta. But
yeah.
anyway,
Well,
so
but then again, you got like writers. I can't remember who wrote it now. Game of Thrones. Um,
J.R.R. Top now.
no, that's
That's
Lord of
Lord
the
of the
Rings.
Rings.
Uh, someone. I don't know why I can't remember it. I'm such a big fan of Game of Thrones, but it the writer for that really sort of enjoyed the show, and George R. R. Martin. That's it.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, yeah.
George R. R. Martin. And he would write an episode for the TV series, just like one a series, which I found quite interesting. But yeah. So the other critics of the film. So the Metacritic score is 66, which isn't, you
That's
know,
low.
that's pretty low for such an iconic film. But I feel like um because it's lower than Parasite, the one we reviewed last week. But I think that's possibly because it's an older film, so it's had more time to kind of rack up the negative
Yeah.
reviews and kind of be a bit more embedded within, society and time, and all that. But the user score is a bit higher with 8.8, which is out of 10 for some reason. I don't know why they do it for the Metacritic score out of 100 and the user score out of 10. It's very confusing. Um, but Peter Bradshaw from The Guardian says, instead of the cramped darkness and panicky, quick editing of the standard issue scary movie, Kubrick gives us an eerie, colossal, brilliantly lit spaces of the Overlook Hotel, created in Elstree Studios, Herefordshire, shot with amplitude and calm. Which I would have to agree with him on that. I think perhaps a point we'll come on to later in the podcast is the sort of how he kind of transverses sort of, I don't know, horror movie stereotypes and kind of going against the grain of like, "Bleh, scary ghost," that
Well, there
sort
are
of thing.
scary ghosts in it, but like not jump
Yeah,
scares, no squeaky violins, like
more sort of
suspense.
psychological, more suspenseful, you know. Which I think he does quite well. And the Rotten Tomatoes score is a bit better, so it's 84% certified fresh. Audience score of 93%. I think the audience tends to like it a bit more than the critics from what I've seen
That's
here.
what gets most of the views, though, isn't it? The audience.
Yeah.
That's what I think. They focus if they're making a sequel. I know Shining doesn't have a sequel. Well, it does. Whenever films make a sequel, they always look at the audience score because, well, critics is barely any. There's only a few,
Mm.
and
But the
the audience.
critics do kind of decide who goes to see the movie
That
sometimes.
is
So,
true. Yeah.
I will watch a or listen to a Mark Commode review sometimes before I'll go watch a film. But one of the sort of more negative reviews by Ernest Leo Grande, from the New York Daily News says shock effect and graphic imagery don't compensate for the sense of pointlessness and even distaste that is
Oh,
left at the end of the movie.
oh,
Oh, oh,
jeez! Shot through the heart.
that's quite offensive. Uh, Bob Thomas from the Associated Press says Kubrick is a master of visual images, and many of the scenes display his brilliance, but much of the suspense ends in anti-climax. And Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall seem overextended in trying to maintain the terror. Interesting. So I think that possibly uh, brings us on to a couple of points there that I'd like to get started off on is the acting in the film.
Yes.
And I think it's quite in quite a lot of interesting acting that the actors do. Actors doing acting terrible. So Jack Nicholas, or is it Jack Nicholson?
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nich- Oh my
Nicholson.
god.
Oh my word! Call yourself a film student.
Jack Nicholson, Jack Nipples. His acting, I thought was absolutely fantastic in
It
the film.
it's phenomenal.
Mm,
Stays in character throughout the whole behind the scenes. So I've seen a couple of videos uh, documenting the behind the scenes, and
yeah,
you just see him just hitting him like it was before the infamous "Here's Johnny." Uh, when he's doing it, he's hitting himself in the face and
yeah.
smacking himself with the axe and just banging the wall and grunting and "Rrr," and pacing up and down. And that must be like, oh my god, I would just love to see that happen and just be on a set and just
Mm.
see that happen. And I think he stayed like method actor. He stayed in character for the whole shoot, even when he's not on it. It's just like he's got that menacing voice that he does, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
I,
I like the sort of fact that he really took his role very seriously.
mm.
You know, and I think he's obviously gotten a lot out of the role. I
Well, it
think,
wasn't really well known before he did that role. Like he just did
no,
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That was really it before he actually became a known person. Really.
yeah, I mean, that here's Johnny scene
Mm.
was, I don't know whether it's completely improvised, but
It
it
was.
was it was, the line was improvised in The Shining. And I
Yeah.
think that's
I think he took it off like I think he said it was like a daytime TV host that like when they walk and goes, "Here's Johnny," and, like as soon as they walk on for their show, and I
yeah.
think Kubrick, because it's an American, it was an American show apparently, and Kubrick, obviously he had no idea, and that's why he kept it in because like he's improvised that. Oh, it's brilliant. I know, he just quoted a TV show.
Yeah, I mean, I that sort of like inventiveness, and it's such an iconic scene that, when people go, "Oh, The Shining," they go, "Oh, here's Johnny,"
Yeah,
and stuff like that. And it's
it's featured in like The
possibly,
Simpsons as well, and it's
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah. I mean, The Simpsons have parodied The Shining quite a bit.
The
Um,
Shinning, it's called.
The Shining, yeah. I mean, this is basically Jack Nicholson's, I would say,
Breakout
most
performance.
breakout performance, most popular performance. I mean, he's been in a few other films, As Good as It Gets, Batman, One Flew Over the
Chinatown.
Cuckoo's, yeah, Chinatown, stuff like that. But I think perhaps none as iconic and as influential as The Shining. And I think that's I don't know. It was quite, and I think the other actors performances in the film were quite good. And I think the Danny Lloyd, the child,
Oh,
which doesn't seem like a child's name, but obviously he's not a child now, but he the child performance was really good. I think it's hard to sort of, you know, it's hard to get good child actors, I feel. But
especially quite dark performances, really.
yeah,
It's like dark films, and he did great.
so
I really do think he did great.
it's quite well done. I mean, well, it, yeah, and I think Chevelle, or Shelley Duval. As you can tell, I can't read names properly. Playing Wendy in the film, absolutely fantastic acting as well. And I think it's sort of her terror. And I think from what I heard, she was basically kind of traumatized on set
Yeah,
by
the
Stanley.
infamous bat up the stairs scene. Oh my word!
Yeah,
I think 150 takes or something like that.
yeah,
Oh, it was again and again and again and again and again. Because
yeah.
he's a perfectionist. Kubrick
Mm.
is a perfectionist, and he wants everything to be perfect. He wants everything to be his way. He's like, yeah. Yeah. Some of the interviews I saw, she really was traumatized.
Yeah, I mean, it's just quite sort of reading a couple of articles on it. It's just like she was basically said that she was traumatized for life. And apparently, Kubrick was seen to behave tyrannically towards her to kind of get her into character, which is kind of like method directing in a way, which is, I feel sorry for her really. I think
Yeah.
that, you know, women in films, especially at that time, probably weren't having a great time, and sort of to have that experience on set is probably, you know, yeah. And like you said, it was
Crazy.
127 takes for that
Yeah, yeah.
baseball scene, which is, oh, and she ended up being dehydrated, wounded hands, hoarse throat from crying, all sorts of horrible stuff. But yeah, and coming back to Stephen King, who said he hated Shining very much mainly because of the misogynistic portrait of Wendy.
Oh,
Uh, so in here's another quote from King. He said, "Was basically just to scream and be stupid, and that's not the woman I wrote about." Which is, I don't know, it's quite interesting to see that sort of thing.
I
But
say I touched on it before.
also, yeah,
So I touched on it
um,
before
um,
about the character of Jack. Jack was actually based on Stephen King, and that's another reason why I didn't really like the film.
yeah,
Was because completely misunderstood the take of Jack, and he based Jack on himself, a writer who gets writer's block and goes mental, based
yeah,
on himself, and he really didn't think he didn't really see himself in that role.
yeah. And I suppose that's all of it thing. But like, I mean, let's go. Coming back to the stair scene and the baseball scene,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
quite an interesting sort of bit to cinematography there, which I find sort of bit odd, and how it's kind of like constantly over the shoulder sort of
Mm.
cinematography, and the sort of the constant like climbing of of the camera and that sort of thing. And I think, I don't know, how I think perhaps reading a bit more into that scene and gives me a bit more context and a bit more sort of like, oh. But yeah, I think the general cinematography in the film, though, I'm sure you could tell me a lot more about this,
It's
was just generally quite, I don't know, it was interesting
beautiful,
cinematography.
and it's quite groundbreaking actually.
Mm.
One of the first uses ever of a Steadicam,
Yes, yes.
which was innovative,
Innovative.
innovative. um, Loads of it's like standard in the film shoot now, isn't it? A
Yeah, yeah.
Steadicam, this. Hard to get. I think have to like make it themselves, as it was the first introduction of it. They especially used it on the three big wheel shots. The big wheel was a toy back in the day. It's the big tricycle thing that Danny used when he was pedaling around the hotel. But the first shot, the first one, was a low angle Steadicam shot, quite close to the ground. The reason for that was because they wanted to hear the difference between the carpet and the vinyl floor. So they wanted to hear like a really soft on the carpet, and then really loud on the floor, then quiet, then loud, quiet, then loud, quiet, then loud, which worked really well.
Mm, mm. And the sort of I think perhaps one of the reasons we chose The Shining is because we talked about it last week in the Parasite
Parasite.
episode, and sort of like how we to the director for Parasite was kind of inspired a little bit by the sort of the camera angles that Stanley Kubrick used in The Shining, the sort of the following behind and the sort of the POV shots.
Mm.
Um,
Especially stairs, especially that
yeah,
baseball scene going up the stairs.
yeah, love the stairs and stuff like that, which is, yeah, it's interesting to see that sort of link between two sort of big, heavily influential directors in that sort of way, and seeing that sort of, you know, link made between the two films. Um, and yeah, and like you said, the sort of the introduction of Steadicams, which is just completely used within all of the films. all of the films and basically everything now. So it's without The Shining, you'd have so many wobbly, sort of horrible student-esque films out there, and I think, oh, God bless Stanley Kubrick. But I think, and also going back to the sort of the following of the tricycle or the big wheel,
Yeah.
the carpets. I think this is, we have to discuss this at one point, but the carpets in The Shining are horrible. Uh, you know,
Grimy, the
uh,
browny, muddy looking. Ugh.
and
Not
they're
what I
just
want in my house.
no, and they're just such of their era, aren't they? And it's
Yeah.
just like, I mean, this perhaps doesn't really have much to do with cinema, but it's just, oh god, they're so horrible, and they're
But then
just
if
kind
we
of
are
like,
talking about the carpets, which can lead us into one of the theories
oh,
that
okay,
nutcases have,
yeah,
which
go
is
on then,
that Shining
yeah,
is a confession
mm.
that Stanley Kubrick helped film the faking of the moon landing. What a stretch that is!
uh,
Because the carpet
yeah,
is shaped like the NASA launch pad, the hexagonal pad, and then especially when in that scene when Danny's crouching and the ball rolls to him,
yeah,
he's wearing an Apollo shirt and he's crouching, and he
mm.
rises like the rockets in liftoff. Oh
Wow, you know
wow!
what? Completely true, obviously.
Yeah,
Um,
and then people saying, "Oh yeah, but 2001: Space Odyssey was his screen test." Another groundbreaking film as a screen test of some grainy looking footage that was filmed on the moon. I don't think so. If they wanted to
no,
fake it, they could have made it look like 2001: A Space Odyssey, really nice and clean. But no,
yeah, I just, far fetched. Really, that theory is. And also, if you were faking the moon landing for whatever reason you'd want to do that, why would you put like, your tests into huge big budget films? I don't understand that sort of logic
uh,
behind that. It's like, "Oh, I'm going to do something incredibly secretive and fool entire nations of people across the world. Oh no, let's just, you know, let's get a popular film director to kind of subtly hint at it in his films." Um,
yeah, how about no? And then
I th
another one was like because they renamed the room to
yeah.
237, and people say, "Oh yeah, because that's how many million miles away it is from the moon is from the Earth." Yeah, whatever. It's nowhere near. And the reason why they changed it is because yes, they built it in the hotel in England, but they also filmed inside another hotel, which I really can't remember the name of, and I should have wrote it down. But they didn't want people not to stay in that room because they'd be too scared to go in it.
Yeah. Oh, at the start of that, you kinda sound like Smeagol.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
you went, "Oh, yeah." Uh, yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like, though, if it not naming it after a room, I would want to go stay in the Shining Room, you know what I mean?
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
I feel like
There's
that'd be a draw.
then there's the other Stephen King film about that one haunted room that there was Samuel L. Jackson in it.
Oh,
Yeah, Stephen
yeah.
King.
I mean,
Some
have you
mental films.
this may be a bit of a, off topic. Have you read the book Room 13 in high school?
Is that the Stephen King film?
No, it's a book about Dracula. Anyway,
No.
that was, yeah, it
I
was a
did
pretty
Of
boring
Mice
book.
and Men and Blood Brothers.
I did Of
Woo!
Mice and Men. That was, I liked how short that book was because other people did To Kill a Mockingbird. And
Oh yeah.
that's a very long book. Couldn't bother to read any of that. But yeah, so there's lots of different theories about The Shining.
Mm,
And there's lots more sort of out there theories, I think perhaps, you know, don't really warrant much time for
yeah.
them. I mean, there's ones about the sort of the Holocaust and how
Yeah.
it's all
Especially
secretly about the Holocaust.
yeah. So like the number 42 appears tons in the film with 42 cars in a car park. the number 42 appearing on multiple shirts of Danny's. Why is number 42 important? Because the final solution was ordered in 1942.
Oh.
The typewriter that Jack uses is an Adler brand, which the Nazis used.
Mm. But I think perhaps the sort of the bigger meaning behind The Shining is that perhaps there's lots of different meanings that to get out of the film. I think that's perhaps one of the things that Stanley Kubrick's filmmaking sort of puts forward
So you have
is
your own.
you have your own meaning because he has such an attention to detail and he makes sure that everything within the scene is noticeable. Because I
Yeah,
think with sort of like techniques that other directors use, they're like you'd only notice one thing in the room, really. But I think with The Shining, you notice everything in the room because it's also sort of in your face in a way.
yeah,
And I think one of the sort of the theories that I've heard is that um it's all about sort of the colonization of the Indians in
yeah.
America because it's kind of like on a burial ground of um, ancient
Mm,
Indian burial ground,
um,
and then you can kind of see within the sort of scenes and stuff. And I think it's when they're in the food storage place, and you can see like all the cans with the Indians on them and stuff like that,
yeah.
and I kind of draw the distinction between that. Um,
There is a
but
lot of Native American design alongside that as well, with
yeah,
paintings and designs and
and I
patterns.
kind of get that
Yeah,
in a way, but there's quite a substantial movie which I've seen bits of, you've seen bits of, and I've seen bits of it to kind of prepare for this podcast. And it's Room 237, which is
yeah.
an entire film about a film, which
It
I think is quite amazing.
has utter nutcases in it as well.
Yeah,
First
it's,
year of first year of uni, we were doing documentary, and our lecturers made us watch it,
mm,
parts of it, and he really didn't like it. I don't think. He said
yeah,
utter nutcases in it, utter nutcases.
yeah. I mean, the sort of the film about the film is 1 hour 45 minutes, and The Shining is 2 hours 26 minutes. And I think, there's obviously quite a lot to say about a film there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Um, which I think is quite impressive. And they've got, I really like the intro to Room 237,
Oh
which is
yeah,
kind of like the blood coming out of
the
like a
VHS.
VHS player,
Yeah,
which is quite funky. Uh,
yeah, but along with the,
which I quite like. And yeah, if you have quite a lot, I perhaps wouldn't recommend this film, but if you really like The Shining,
if you like conspiracy
I'll go
theories
I'd
as
go
well.
watch it. Yeah, I think if you're a big fan of The Shining, and again, I haven't watched the entirety of it because I really can't bring myself to watch the entirety of it. But if you're really, really into The Shining, it would be worth watching it.
Yeah,
Um,
but
and
don't agree with what everybody says in it. That's what I would say.
yeah. And I think it's I don't know where you can watch it, but I think it's on
It's on Vimeo.
Vimeo.
It's free on Vimeo.
Um, and I think you can watch it on various other sources if you're really into that sort of thing. Um, but I think perhaps I'm not.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, I think that kind of like brings us on to the more sort of the cult aspects of the film. And I think it's such a cult film, isn't it?
yeah,
Um, you know, it's inspired so much, and it's inspired um so many parodies. Like we were talking about earlier about The Simpsons. People love to parody, and people love to, you know, be inspired by The Shining, and it's
yeah,
sort of the greater impact of the film, um, which is quite amazing, really. And I think it's sort of the general significance of the film, eh, yeah, it's fantastic, really. Um, But yeah, I think going on to I think one thing we didn't really talk about much is There's sort of the music, and I think last week I tried talking about the music for Parasite, and there wasn't really much to go on about it. And I think perhaps the music isn't really much of a notable thing within, you know, The Shining or that much. But there's some good music in there. Um, and and again, going into sort of the more, uh, I don't know, the stretches of the sort of things is that Stanley Kubrick used quite a bit of like sort of classical, and older sort of more, um, ideas into like the Christianity aspects of Christian symbolism in The Shining, um, which I think perhaps, yeah, I don't know. I've read this article about music and the sort of the Christian symbolism of the film, and I perhaps don't think it's, you
So,
know.
what I know about the music is
Mm,
I was watching this YouTube channel called New Rock Stars. Love
yeah,
it, love it, love it so much. Geeky, filmy, but mainly about geeky stuff. They were talking about The Shining a few weeks ago, and they were saying that the main tune, the do 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 was based on I think a funeral piece, a funeral march, and it's like right that happens right at the beginning, and I think
yeah.
it's trying to put a sense of dread in you right from the start.
Well, it's kind of like the coming back to kind of what I said is the Christian symbolism,
Mm. Funeral, yeah.
which I think, and again, it's one of the theories that I perhaps don't really. I don't know. I think probably Stanley Kubrick just put this music in because it kind of like it was nice music,
Yeah.
and I think quite a lot of I don't know. I'd like to say more about music, but I was looking it up before this show, and I was like, "Oh, I haven't really got much about the music." And I tried looking it up the other day. I was like, "Oh, I probably just haven't spent enough time about it." But just don't really think there's much to say about the music.
No.
Um, you know, because uh, it was kind of done a bit by composed a bit by just Stanley Kubrick putting in sort of old songs and stuff like that, which I think is good. And I think the sort of yeah, it was all right, I suppose.
Yeah, you
I don't
can't
really
say
think there's
much
much to
about
say.
the music,
Mm.
but it's really memorable, and
Yeah.
it's used like it's used in so many other films as well.
Mm.
I can name one for sure, which is Ready Player One, where they had a whole scene in the film based on The Shining. That's how much of a cult it is, and it was Steven Spielberg film about
Well, they had
virtual reality.
an entire like huge
Has
portion of that film, didn't
yeah,
they?
in the Overlook Hotel.
Mm.
But then you're saying that you're also saying like films get influenced from it, and there's also films use Shining for Easter eggs. You use it a ton. I know one of the floors in Toy Story. I think it's in Sid's
Oh
house.
yeah,
It's the
yeah,
same carpet as the Overlook Hotel. Um, yeah, again, Simpsons referenced it. Ready Player One referenced is The Shining.
mm,
It's a very not quotable. That's the wrong word. It's a film that loads of people like putting Easter eggs in,
yeah,
especially in all the horror films. Now, yet again, I was watching New Rockstars, and they're saying, and I didn't notice this the first time I watched Us, the film Us,
yeah,
but the twins in that, the friends of the family that they
yeah.
met at the beach, were posed when they died exactly the same as the Grady twins in that little blink, where like one's laying
Ah,
on their belly, one's laying on the back with their leg bent, exactly the same position as the Grady as them. And it's funny because they were twins in the film Us,
mm,
and they were twins in what The Shining. They're Grady twins.
yeah,
That's a cool little nod, subtle nod, and
yeah,
subtle nod to The Shining.
yeah.
I think it was very cool.
It was also referenced in Finding Nemo, which
Really?
yeah, well, I kind of I think it's in the first one where the big sharky
Yeah.
shark. goes, "Here's Brucey,"
Oh
um,
yeah.
which I think, yeah, I don't know why Pixar keep referencing
Yeah.
The
That's
Shining for
Toy
some reason.
Story and now Finding Nemo.
Yeah, I don't really know what that means. Perhaps Stanley Kubrick is secretly a creative director on these Pixar films.
Oh, he's dead.
Is he dead?
He's been dead for a while.
Wow.
Do you know the Steven Spielberg film AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Steven. That was
Did he die in that?
that was Kubrick's film. He wanted because he really liked Steven Spielberg. That was
Yeah.
one of his influences. He died before he could make because he wrote the script for it for the film
Yeah.
AI, but didn't get to film it because he died.
Oh, that's quite sad. Oh.
So
I feel like I should have known
yeah,
it was dead, but I
yeah. So
think but
Steven Spielberg volunteered to well do the film for him.
oh, well, that's quite nice.
Mm.
So yeah, The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. What would you give it out of 10? Give me your reasons.
My reasons.
Yeah.
7.5 to 8.
Oh.
I really loved it.
Yeah.
Not awfully fond of horror films. I do love some horror films. I love horror films, but like
Yeah.
they just
Yeah.
well, that's obviously it works. It scares me to all hell. um, but
Yeah.
the cinematography, beautiful. Um, production design, beautiful. Well, actually, nah, 8 to 8.5 then.
Oh, okay.
Push
Okay.
it up a
Yeah.
little bit. It was just a very influential film,
Mm.
a very watchable film.
Yeah.
I just loved every second of it. I love Jack Nicholson. I love all the hidden meanings behind it.
Mm.
Some that I really can't say on the show. But
Yeah, like
the
the
bear.
bear in
So
the
the
room.
one I really want to say talk about is Danny is connected to the bear ghost costume.
Yeah. I
Yes,
mean, I don't know whether you know this YouTube channel, but College Humor have done a very sort of interesting parody of that scene, which I'll send it to you after, but it was quite funny. Anyway, carry on.
yeah. But it's a bit too dark to mention
Mm.
at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday
Yeah.
afternoon. But if you follow us on Instagram, I can
Yes. What is our
tell you
Instagram, Luke?
it is the Northern Film Review
It's the
podcast.
Northern Film.
The
Yes,
Northern
there we
Film
go.
Review podcast. So please
Give us a
follow us on
follow.
Instagram,
Yeah.
and you'll be notified when this will be on the radio, and also
Yeah.
uploading it to YouTube.
Yes. Yes.
Same
On
as
YouTube.
our Instagram. The link's
Yeah.
in the bio. So
Mm.
please give us a follow and give us a follow on YouTube.
Yeah. Follow us.
So you asked me what that's my.
Yes.
I mean, what's yours?
What
What are
is
you gonna
my
give it?
rating? So I like the film, and I think when I first watched it, um, I think well I first watched it in my birthday this year, which was in the height of lockdown in Britain, um, which I don't know. I don't really know what that means for my psyche, but I quite liked it then, and I want to rewatch it again. I quite liked it then as well, and I think I don't know.
It's
I
hard to give
I
reviews. It's hard to give a
yeah,
solid.
I think
Uh,
after reading sort of different reviews on it, I think that may have swayed my opinion because, like, well, when you don't read a review on something, you perhaps don't see the sort of the
all the hidden meanings and
um
all
the
negative. Yeah,
negatives about it. You're like, oh, this feels fantastic in your mind, and you read a view, and you're like, oh yeah, I
yeah.
suppose so. It's kind of open your mind a little bit to it. I think, and also taking into account the sort of the cultural impacts of this film and its effect on the sort of culture and the wider sort of the cult cinema and sort of stuff like that. I think is I don't know. I'd give it an 8.3.
Uh,
8.3.
point
I think
three.
that's it's a
God, you need to
positive
give it a
score.
0.5 or point. That's
No, I think 8.3 is
point three.
8.3 is good for me. I think because it's not quite because we gave Parasite. I gave Parasite a 9.5,
I think I
and I
gave it a
think
9.5. I think.
yeah, I think although The Shining is good, I don't think it is as good as Parasite. For
I
me
mean, it is
personally,
affected by modern technology.
yeah,
With cameras they use to film and stuff like that.
yeah, I
That can
suppose so.
happen.
But
The
like
visual
it,
aspect of it, but
it still doesn't make it the fact that it's it's just a better film.
it's a brilliant film. Yeah,
Um,
go watch Parasite.
yeah, but no, The Shining is pretty good, and I think
Yeah,
if perhaps I was more into sort of more vintage horror films,
yeah,
um, and of the era, and I was a bit more of an 80s sort of film fan, it would be really sort of up my street. And it's sort of, it's good to talk about The Shining because of the
yeah.
cultural impacts that it's had in filmmaking, and it's nice to talk about Stanley Kubrick and
I
stuff
know
like that.
our film art lecturer is
Yeah,
absolutely loves old retro horror films. He goes on and on about all these niche horror films that no one's
yeah,
ever seen before. So
and no one will ever see again. But
yeah.
but yeah, 8.3. That's what
Eight
I'm
point
going with.
three, solid review.
That's what I'm
Okay,
going with. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed our little takes on The Shining here. I think perhaps we gave you a little bit of more insight into the film, and I think it's very interesting. Well, I'd still recommend going watching it just
yeah,
to
please go
big up
watch
on
it.
your sort of film history. It is a recommendation. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed the show so far. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and make sure to see us back next week on Lee's Student Radio, 2 till 3, and of course on our YouTube, the Northern Film Review podcast. And make sure to give us a follow
Follow.
and a nice like on Instagram.
And if you
Northern,
have any suggestions, please message us to films that you want us to talk about.
yes, on our Instagram or comment on our YouTube videos. So yes, I've been Oliver,
I've been Luke.
and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye bye.
Bye.